Most people wait until they're attacked to fight back. They wait for competition to appear, for rivals to make the first move, for tension to rise before they take action. But Machiavelli, he never waited, because he understood something most people are too moral to admit. The most effective way to win a battle is to break your enemy before the battle begins. Before they challenge you, before they position themselves next to you, before they think they have a chance. That's when you strike. Not with violence, not with threats, but with strategic psychological sabotage. A quiet dismantling of their confidence, identity, and momentum. Because when someone's confidence is intact, they are dangerous. Their ambition is active. Their moves are bold. But once their certainty starts to decay, even slightly, they collapse internally, long before anything external happens. And that's where your power lives. You don't defeat competitors by attacking their strengths. You defeat them by corrupting their belief in themselves. This is Machiavelli's law of the preemptive strike. The first principle is brutal. Never allow your rivals to feel equal, even subtly. This doesn't require open dominance. It's much colder than that. You undermine quietly. You outshine passively. You radiate indifference toward their efforts while reinforcing the silent message that they are not in your league. When they speak, you pause before responding, as if their words were beneath response. When they celebrate a win, you nod like it's average. When they try to match your moves, you switch directions, quietly, effortlessly, like you're playing a different game. You never tell them they're below you. You let them conclude it on their own. That way, the insecurity is self-generated, and self-generated doubt is always more corrosive than external criticism. This is psychological erosion, and Machiavelli would advise that once they begin to question themselves, you've already won. The second principle is to expose their weaknesses before they realize them. If your competitor is preparing for something, like public speaking, a business move, or a performance, you strike by subtly highlighting the one thing they secretly fear they're bad at. Not by saying it directly, as that would make them defensive. You do it through offhand comments, loaded compliments, and strategic silence. For example, you might say, "You're really brave for going into this so unprepared." Or, "You always sound so passionate, whether people understand you or not." Or even, "This kind of pressure would overwhelm most people. Hope you've got it handled." These aren't insults. They're planted suggestions, designed to make them second-guess the exact thing they need to be confident about. Machiavelli knew that a sword at your throat is terrifying, but a whisper in your ear can be devastating. Because once self-doubt begins, it multiplies. Their mind does the rest. They rehearse failure, they tighten up, their instincts dull, and by the time they face you, they're already weaker. They won't even know why. This is what makes the preemptive strike so deadly. They will never trace it back to you because you never declared war. You just let them ruin themselves in silence. The third principle is to position yourself as the standard, not the opponent. This one is surgical. Your goal is to create the illusion that you are not competing with them. They are competing with you. You do this by never acknowledging them directly. You never react to their moves. You make your achievements look effortless and inevitable. You surround yourself with people who treat you like a reference point, not a peer. This creates an identity structure around you. You become the benchmark, the default, the figure everyone else is trying to match. And the moment your rival starts framing their progress in comparison to you, they've already submitted, even if they don't realize it yet. Machiavelli's entire political life was built around this principle. When dealing with allies and enemies alike, he made it clear, "You don't challenge me. You measure yourself against me." This keeps you elevated. It keeps them chasing shadows, and it prevents them from seeing the truth that you've already rigged the game. The fourth principle is to build pressure behind your silence. This is where most people lose their advantage. They talk too much. They engage too early. They react. But the real Machiavellian knows that silence is a loaded weapon, and the longer you stay quiet, the heavier your presence becomes. When your rival tries to provoke, you don't bite. When they post wins, you don't clap. When they try to get in your head, you let them talk, and you say nothing. That silence does something unnatural to people who crave validation. It turns into pressure. They start projecting, wondering, "Did I say too much? Did they even notice me? What are they planning next?" And now they're no longer focused on the game. They're focused on you. Machiavelli would call this psychological gravity, when your silence draws their attention more than your words ever could. when they begin to rehearse imaginary conversations with you in their mind. That's when you've colonized them mentally. That's when your preemptive strike has landed, without ever touching them, without ever being seen. Because the real war Machiavelli fought wasn't over territory or politics. It was over certainty. And once your competitor loses certainty, they lose everything. Not publicly, but internally. That's where their confidence dies. And when they finally show up to challenge you, they do it with shaky hands and uncertain eyes. Because long before they stepped onto the field, you already beat them in their own mind. Confidence is not built in public. It's built in solitude, in secrecy, in repetition. But Machiavelli knew something darker. Confidence is also destroyed the same way. Quietly, subtly, without ever drawing a blade. If you can shatter a person's belief in themselves without ever engaging them directly, you've defeated them before the competition begins. That's why Machiavelli's preemptive strike was never about dramatic confrontation. It was about contaminating certainty, turning your opponent's strengths into insecurities, their momentum into hesitation, and doing it all before they realize what's happening. The fifth principle in this method is surgical. Reframe their ambition as desperation. When someone is rising, building momentum, making noise, they often carry that early fire of self-belief. Machiavelli's strategy is to reframe it in the public eye, not as power, but as proof of their insecurity. You don't say they're failing. That would be too direct. You imply that their ambition is loud because it's compensating for weakness. You say it casually, around the right people, with comments like, "He's trying so hard to prove something," or "You can feel how badly she needs this," or even, "Interesting how much they talk about winning. Usually that means they're not." The goal is not to attack their moves. It's to poison how their moves are perceived. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. In his writings, he advised princes to control the public narrative about their rivals, framing their strength as recklessness and their ambition as instability. Because in the court of public perception, narrative always beats effort. And if you make someone look like they're striving too hard, the world stops rooting for them and starts doubting them. Once that doubt sets in, their own mind will do the rest. The sixth principle is to flood the battlefield before they arrive. This is a move most people never think about. You see someone rising. Maybe they're gaining influence, attention, authority, and you wait. You observe. But a Machiavellian doesn't wait. He moves first. You flood the space with your presence before they can claim it. Let's say they're preparing to launch something, an idea, a product, a speech, a persona. You don't compete directly. You simply release your own version earlier, better, sharper. Or you create a different piece of content that addresses the same subject but more confidently, more completely, and with more force. Now they're not entering fresh territory. They're following you, even if they don't realize it. And if they do, they hesitate. They ask themselves, will it look like I'm copying? Is this already old news? Am I too late? You've already created the shadow they now must walk in. This is Machiavelli's way of denying momentum. Don't wait for their move. Make it obsolete before it begins. It's not sabotage, it's territory control. And once you've occupied the field, even the boldest rivals begin to shrink. Next, offer praise so faint it sounds like a warning. Direct insults trigger defense, but passive approval triggers paranoia. Imagine someone says, "He's really doing well," for someone who's just starting. Or, "She's surprisingly confident considering the pressure." Or, "If he keeps this up, maybe he'll be taken seriously." It sounds like support, but underneath, it's a message that you're not there yet. You're temporary, you're being watched. These statements do more damage than attacks because they enter the rival's head without resistance. They start to see themselves as others see them, not as a threat, but as a curiosity. And if they're insecure already, which most ambitious people are, you've just placed a distorted mirror in front of them. And now, every success feels slightly fake. Every win feels slightly conditional. Every step forward echoes with, "Maybe this isn't real yet." That psychological undertone is your victory. Machiavelli understood that praise is powerful when laced with control. The best way to weaken someone is not to attack their ego. It's to feed it just enough to keep it unstable. Another principle is to plant uncertainty through comparison. A rising rival often believes they're unique, that they've brought something fresh. Machiavelli's counter to this is to show them they're replaceable before they realize it. Again, you don't say it directly. You simply compare them to others. but in a way that strips away their individuality, with comments like, "He reminds me of that other guy from last year. Where is he now?" Or, "Her style is a lot like so-and-so. I wonder if she'll evolve or stay in the same lane." Or, "It's been done. Well, at least he's doing it confidently." Each comment sounds harmless, but what you're really saying is that they are not new, they are not irreplaceable, and we have seen this before. And the moment that message takes hold, the rival begins to self-monitor. They try too hard to prove they're original. They second-guess their style. They start changing course mid-process. And once they do that, you've won. Because Machiavelli didn't want his rivals defeated by force. He wanted them defeated by internal contradiction. Once their identity becomes a moving target, their strength disappears. Then you reveal their confidence as calculation. This is where you begin to dissolve their final layer of armor. Confident people project certainty, but often that certainty is calculated, practiced, and fragile. So you expose it, not by challenging their confidence, but by calling it what it is: performance. You might say, "He's very well trained in saying the right things," or "She's mastered the look of confidence. That takes a lot of rehearsal." Or, "It's clear he's prepared for this moment. It'll be interesting to see how he handles what isn't planned." You've just reframed their strength as fabrication. And now, they feel like a character, not a competitor. That separation kills confidence because confidence depends on alignment between identity and execution. When someone feels like they're just playing a role, they lose authenticity. They become stiff, defensive, and reactive. Exactly the kind of person who breaks under pressure. And pressure is the final move. That's where all of this leads. You don't need to attack directly. You just need to build the expectation of performance so high that they collapse trying to meet it. You've complimented them faintly. You've forced comparisons. You've removed uniqueness. You've framed their momentum as noise. You've filled the room before they arrived. And now, when it's finally their time to perform, they overthink, they underdeliver, they self-destruct. And you stay quiet, watching from your throne. The battle never even started, because you ended it before they knew they were in one. A rival who's confident is dangerous, but a rival who's nearly confident, that's a tragedy waiting to happen. Machiavelli knew this difference well. He didn't aim to destroy giants. He aimed to shatter emerging confidence, the most fragile kind, the kind that hasn't been battle-tested yet, the kind that's still fueled by hope and attention, not yet by pressure and scars. Because once you break someone in that stage, they rarely recover. You don't just beat them, you scar them permanently. And so the next layer of the preemptive strike begins, not with words, but with systems of erosion, subtle psychological operations that destroy from within. Quietly, surgically, you must use time as a weapon and delay their rhythm. Every confident person has a tempo, a rhythm, a momentum that keeps them moving forward. If you can disrupt their timing, even slightly, you throw off their entire emotional structure. You can do this by arriving late to meetings with them, just enough to show disinterest. Take longer to respond to their messages than you normally would. React slowly to their achievements, as if they're not urgent, not impressive, not disruptive. This doesn't just annoy them, it breaks their frame. Because confident people rely on feedback loops. They move fast, succeed fast, get reactions fast, and their identity depends on that speed. When you slow things down, you remove the dopamine. You starve the reward. You turn their confident performance into a lonely echo chamber. And worst of all, you make them wonder if they're as effective as they thought. Machiavelli understood that slowness is dominance. Not slowness from laziness, but slowness from control. Next, casually showcase ease. Make their effort look heavy. When someone is preparing to compete with you, they're working hard. They're grinding, practicing, building. Their identity is wrapped in effort. So you sabotage that by making effort look embarrassing. You act effortlessly in public. You reveal results with no visible signs of stress. You present wins as casual, low-energy byproducts of who you are, not what you worked for. Your captions are minimal. Your tone is bored. Your body language says, "This? Oh, I barely tried." Now imagine your competitor sees this while drowning in preparation, while rehearsing lines, while staying up all night to build what you just dismissed in one breath. That contrast is psychological poison. It makes them ask, why am I working so hard to reach someone who's not even trying? And once that thought enters their mind, They begin to self-doubt, to overcorrect, to break. Because the worst kind of pressure is not someone else doing better than you. It's someone doing better while acting like they don't even care. Then you weaponize second-hand opinions, using others to deliver your strike. Machiavelli never fought alone. His brilliance wasn't in being loud, it was in being surrounded by echo chambers that whispered what he didn't have to say. You don't always need to strike directly. You can say things like, "I heard some people don't think he's as sharp as he looks," or "There's a rumor she copied that idea," or "A few people are starting to notice his act is getting stale," and let others carry the seed. This is so effective because now, your rival isn't fighting you. They're fighting invisible shadows, trying to please people who've never said anything directly. They become paranoid, defensive, and spin their wheels. You've just shifted their focus off the goal and onto the imagined audience. That's how you erase competitive edge, not by attacking their performance, but by corrupting the audience in their mind. Machiavelli understood the best weapon is the one they pick up themselves. Let your rival carry the weight of reputation maintenance. You stay in the shadows and let their paranoia do the work. You can also encourage their boldness, right before they're ready. This is one of the coldest tricks in the Machiavellian arsenal. When you see a competitor preparing something big, an announcement, a project, a performance, you don't discourage them. You encourage them. You feed their confidence just before the knife slips. You tell them, "You've got to post that today, this is the moment," or "I wouldn't wait any longer, you're ready," or "You're way ahead of the curve, go for it." But you say this knowing they're not ready, knowing they'll publish prematurely, knowing they'll expose themselves before their edge is sharp enough. And when it falls flat, they don't blame you, they blame themselves. They wonder, "Why didn't it land? I thought I was ready. Did I misread my own impact?" They spiral inward. You sit still, and suddenly, their momentum dies by their own hand. You gave them the rope. They tied the knot. Furthermore, you can mirror their energy, then slowly withdraw. This is about emotional conditioning. When someone starts to see you as an equal or a friendly presence, they lower their guard. You mirror their enthusiasm. You respond quickly. You match their tone. You share ideas. And then, slowly, step by step, you reduce your engagement. Your replies become colder. Your reactions become minimal. Your energy turns into indifference. This creates emotional whiplash. Their nervous system starts to wonder, did I do something wrong? Did they lose respect for me? Was the connection never real? And just like that, you've emotionally destabilized them without ever saying a word. They start overanalyzing every interaction. They start trying to win you back. They start hesitating, not just with you, but with themselves. You've pulled the emotional rug from under them, and now, they're too busy recalibrating to compete with you. Finally, stay visible but emotionally unreachable. This is the final preparation before the strike lands. You don't disappear. You stay right there, visible, present, unbothered, but cold. They see you. They hear your voice. They watch your moves. But they can't get to you. Not emotionally, not relationally, not psychologically. This creates a force field of superiority. They can watch your growth, but they're locked out of your world. That barrier between where you are and where they thought they'd be is what breaks them. Because most competition depends on perceived access. The belief that I can catch up, or I'm almost there, or we're not so different. When you remove that illusion, they don't just stop trying. They lose the will to try. And once that moment hits, when they stop seeing themselves as a rival, your preemptive strike is complete. No damage visible, no blood drawn, no words needed, just one man, unbothered, untouched, uncompeted with. Because the real war was never won on the battlefield. It was won in their mind, before they even had a chance to show up. There is no greater victory than defeating someone before they believe they're even in a fight. That is the core of Machiavelli's preemptive strike, not to react to a threat, but to remove the very possibility of competition. Not by intimidation, not by suppression, but by psychological distortion. A slow rewiring of your rival's self-perception until their ambition collapses under its own uncertainty. By this final stage, the person you once saw as a potential threat is now just tired. They still show up, they still try, but the light is gone from their eyes. Because you didn't destroy their path. You destroyed their belief that they could walk beside you. Let's complete this destruction with the last surgical moves of Machiavellian dominance. The final twist of the blade is to publicly escalate while they pause. Once you've eroded their confidence, destabilized their feedback loop, and made them question the meaning of their efforts, the last step is to accelerate publicly, not to mock them, not to attack them, just to show the gap widening. Release your next project with zero delay. Show progress without explanation. Make decisive moves while they're still planning. The impact is devastating because it proves everything they feared. I was never ready, and he really is on another level. And now they're not just behind, they're ashamed. They feel like a joke. Not because you told them that, but because they convinced themselves. Machiavelli understood. The best weapon is not humiliation, it's silent acceleration. Because once you create a sense of irreversible distance, your rival doesn't just stop chasing you. They start rebranding themselves as something smaller, safer, less threatening. They choose comfort over conflict. They betray their ambition to protect their ego. And your throne remains untouched, not because you fought for it, but because they never climbed. Next, display a circle stronger than their identity. People rarely compete alone. They need support, applause, allies, echo chambers that tell them, you can do this. So take those away, not by isolating them, but by making your circle visibly superior. Showcase sharper conversations, higher status alliances, colder, more effective team members, and environments where only excellence survives. Your rival starts comparing. They think, his team moves faster, or they all understand each other better, or my people aren't this sharp. And once that seed is planted, they don't just question themselves. They question their entire ecosystem. They begin to mistrust their friends. They get frustrated with their teammates. They feel alone, even when surrounded. You've created a silent exile, one that they choose. Because Machiavelli didn't conquer lands. He conquered hierarchies. And when your group looks like an elite force, while theirs looks like amateurs, the competitor stops competing. They start watching, then fading,